Hey, loves. Welcome to Becoming P31 with your host, Jazzy Nicole. You guys, this podcast is all about becoming a Proverbs 31 woman, and I am more than grateful that you decided to embark on this journey with me as we work towards becoming the woman that God designed us to be. We're going to talk about the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows. We may get a little messy, but all in the honor of God. And I'm just thankful that you guys are here. Stay tuned for today's episode. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, and welcome back to Becoming P31 with your host, Jazzy Nicole. I am so excited to see how you guys are doing this week. It's been an entire week since I talked to you, sis, and I don't even like that I have not talked to you in a week. It's been 7 whole days. 7 days. Baby, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Have you been in your word? Mm. Okay, good. Okay, good. Listen, I have had a very strong week as far as productivity goes. And honestly, my week has been full. It's been like workload crazy. And you know what? I can't even complain because it's one of those situations where like you are asking God for more and God gives you more. It's like, girl, don't even complain about it because God is looking out for you. You are operating in what you prayed for. Period. So this week has been so good because for me, I am hands full, very blessed, super excited. And there's been things that God has been really showing in me and showing for me and showing up for me and reassuring me. And I got to tell you about them. I got to tell you about them. So today, let me tell you the title of today's podcast first. Today's podcast is about vulnerability, the importance of vulnerability. So the power of vulnerability, the importance of it, and embracing it as a godly woman. So as we get into this, I'm gonna tell you, well, for one, I ain't even gotta add no disclaimer because y'all know I be real vulnerable with y'all. I be real vulnerable with y'all. I be telling y'all everything, almost too much. Ooh, y'all be in my business. Y'all be in my business. Be honest. Hmm. Okay, because I know it. I know it. Ain't nothing wrong with it, girl. Come on. I will openly invite you to my business. I'm an open book. Um, but anywho, let me tell you. So God has been working with me on worrying less, baby. So if you guys don't know, TikTok and social media is my full time job. And I was calling myself a content creator, but I was watching this movie on Netflix because I love like Christmas movies. And I think it was called like Christmas with a Kiss, maybe. No, that wasn't that one. It was another Netflix movie I watched. Christmas with a Kiss was good, but I watched another Christmas movie. And the girl, she was a social media influencer, but she said her name, she was a social media brand ambassador. And I said, oop, I'm stealing it. I'm stealing it. I am a social media brand ambassador officially as of Friday when I watched that movie. Okay. That's what I am. I'm a social media brand ambassador. And so that's my full-time job. But y'all know like my full-time job is TikTok. That's my job. Like I am on TikTok. And I have recently decided to like, start posting more on YouTube. I'm working at it. I'm working real hard on being consistent with YouTube and then also the podcast, which right now the podcast is something that God has called me to do that I am doing for free. So it's not like I'm getting paid from that, but like, TikTok is my full-time job. It's how I get my income. So with TikTok, if you don't know, the government has given TikTok some time, a substantial amount of time to either sell the platform or end it for everybody. So the platform is scheduled, I believe, by January 19th of 2025. So we're in November. By January 19th of 2025, TikTok may be no longer and it may be canceled as a result of the owner of TikTok not selling it. I don't blame the man, to be honest. But with that being said, for those of us who work solely on TikTok or that is our income, which that God called me to quit. So I am what I am. Y'all know that story, but um, it brings up a level of anxiety and making me almost want to control the narrative and control the situation. God, should I start looking for jobs now? God, should I I've been saving money, but how should I be navigating in this season of uncertainty? And, God has been dealing with me with this level of uncertainty because this is my income and I am a single mother and I do have 2 kids. And in this whole thing, y'all, not gonna even lie, like God has been telling me, do not worry about things that you cannot control. This is what God has been saying to me. And so, for a while when I seen the articles and, the articles are popping up more and more frequently with the holidays coming up and with it getting so close to that January date, God has been really just laying that on my heart. And it seems like every season of my life, God has another word for me. So right now the season is do not worry about what you cannot control. And okay, this video is about vulnerability, but I got to tell you what I read in Bible study because it kind of goes hand in hand. So when I'm thinking about this season and leaving the control piece out of it and giving it to God and allowing him to navigate my situation, I literally have been reading the Bible. I've been reading the book of Read the Bible in 52 Weeks. I got this book from TikTok. You can also get it from Amazon. But this book specifically is guiding you to read every book of the Bible. So every day you're reading 4 chapters of the Bible per day, 6 days a week. The 7th day you're meditating. I think I told you guys about this at least 2 weeks ago, I believe, that I was starting it if you wanted to join me. But the book that I've been reading is Genesis. And if you are familiar with the story of Sarah and Abraham in Genesis, then you know exactly where I'm going with this. But if you're not familiar, let me tell you the story because I got to share the tea about Sarah and Abraham in the book of Genesis. So you have Sarah and you have Abraham. They're married. God promised Abraham. He promised him that he was going to have a whole bunch of descendants. Okay. He said, Abraham, I'm going to bless you abundantly. You're going to have a lot of descendants. Now let's talk about the importance of having descendants back then. This is when the world has started brand new. The world has started over. People are multiplying. Okay. So you're talking about really fresh, really fresh. So Abraham being promised by God that he was going to have a multitude of descendants, that was huge for him because your goal then was to build a legacy. Your goal then was to have men to carry on your legacy, to have children, sons to carry on your legacy. That was your goal. So in reading this, the kicker is that Sarah and Abraham, the 2 married couple, they are old. And Sarah is barren, meaning she cannot have kids. So Sarah cannot have kids. Abraham's promised these amazing things, but he can't have kids. So tell me how God is going to tell me that I'm going to have a whole bunch of children and descendants and be the father of a new nation, but I can't even have kids with my wife. Like, tell me how that's going to work, God. How it going to work? Sarah has a maid, and her name is Hagar. So basically, Hagar is a slave. So Sarah has a slave named Hagar. Sarah tells Hagar to lay down with Abraham so they can have a child together. And this is not what God told them to do. God said you and Sarah are going to have a kid. Sarah tells Hagar to lay down with Abraham so that they can have a child so that she can have a descendant. So Abraham and Hagar end up producing a son. His name is Ishmael. Okay. Now, so much story behind that between Ishmael and Abraham and Sarah and Hagar. But if you fast forward in that story, Hagar ends up having Ishmael. And then ultimately God comes back to Abraham when Ishmael's about 13 and says, listen, I need you and Sarah to have a child together. You guys are going to have a child. You are going to name him Isaac. And Abraham, of course, now he's 13 years older. He's like, listen, God, I'm old. Sarah old. Please tell me how that's going to happen. God says it's going to happen. And Sarah and Abraham end up having a son and they name him Isaac. Now, there's so much story behind that and in between that, but I just wanted to get to the point of Sarah was trying to control the situation that God said he was going to handle. God said to Abraham, I'm going to give you and Sarah a child. Sarah said to Abraham, I'm going to have us have a child. I don't want to wait on this from God. Like, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening other than me making it happen. I know what God promised, but I got to make it happen. Sarah was trying to control the situation when God already worked it out. God already promised Abraham that he was going to have a son. He promised him Isaac. Sarah decided to control the situation, and for that reason, her controlling the situation caused Hagar and Abraham to have a child named Ishmael. So why am I telling you all this? Because trying to control the narrative when God already gave you the promise is detrimental. It causes friction in a family, and when it doesn't even need to be happening. So when looking at my situation, I know a year ago, God called me out of a 14-year job, told me to quit, told me what to do, told me exactly play by play what I needed to work on. Me worrying about what's going to happen in January is me trying to control a narrative that God already worked out. And so this story is just so beautiful to me because of the importance of giving God that control and taking that stress and worry off of yourself. You don't have to worry about it when God already worked it out. What are you stressing about, Sarah? I know God looked at me and was like, Sarah, if you don't stop stressing about January 19th and just let me do what I said I was going to do, I said you was going to be good, girl. You're going to be good. Just wait. Just wait and watch me work it out. And if you have to pivot, if my calling for you is to pivot, I will allow you to pivot. And I don't know who else that is for, but baby, stop trying to control the situation that God already worked out. Stop being Sarah. Sarah, stop being Sarah. So, anywho, let's talk about the real topic, which is being vulnerable, the power of being vulnerable. And let's talk about what vulnerable, girl, get it out. Yes, I'm trying. Let's talk about what vulnerability means and why it's critical in our faith journey. Okay. Now we're going to look at a couple verses together and I'm going to put them in the description box. Okay. So we're going to look at 2 Corinthians verse 12. We're going to look at verses 9 through 10 in the NIV. And it says, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. So when we're looking at this, but he said to me, God is saying to you, my grace is sufficient for you. And he's saying to you, my power is made perfect in the areas that you're weak in. He says, then the man responds, so therefore I'm going to boast more gladly about my weaknesses. I'm going to be excited. I'm going to talk about how weak I am because I know that Christ's power is going to rest in the areas I'm weak in. Let's think about it. Sarah was barren. She was weak in the area of being able to have a child, but God's power was allowed to be made perfect through her weakness. Girl, y'all not ready for that. Y'all not ready for that. My weakness is worrying. I will worry. 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 I will try to control. I will try to control. I will control. And for that reason, that is my weakness. But God, if I give that to him, his power is going to be made beautifully through that. And if we are being vulnerable with each other and we're being open and we're being transparent and we're being honest with each other, we can see the importance behind that. Because, so if we're being honest about that, being vulnerable is being open and transparent, right? Let's think about some situations that you may have heard someone's story about Christ, about their relationship with God that was hard for them. I mean, they're telling you their story and they in tears. When God saved me, when God met me, when God corrected me, and they're emotional. Their vulnerability and their openness and their transparency probably allowed a lot of people to grow in their relationship with God. This is important. Recognizing your weaknesses and recognizing your limitations is important. God, use this flaw within me. I have a flaw of worrying. God, use that. Please flip it. Because with me, I'm going to be stressing out for 7 days and 7 nights. With you, baby, I ain't no telling what you going to do with it. Just please, just take it. Just take it. I have a habit of controlling the narrative and trying to control a situation. God, take it from me. Now that one's scary because you you have a control issue. Baby, God is going to leave it to where you don't have no option other than to rely on him. No option. No option. But really, all of that being said, you are in the process of embracing the humility of coming to God in your vulnerability, coming to God in your openness and your transparency. And then not only just with your walk with God, but vulnerability in your walk with God and even in your relationships is so important. So I just started a relationship. This is coming on officially our 1 year, which is celebrate. Um, this guy is amazing. He is so sweet. He is so thoughtful. He is just a breath of fresh air, a breath of fresh air. And I was having a conversation with him, and I was telling him about my past relationships and the way I operated in my past relationships, um, which was not being open and honest. Not saying I'm lying, but like I hid parts of myself so that I wouldn't look a certain way. I hid parts of myself so that it wouldn't come off a certain way. And with him, I feel open and able to be completely transparent with him and be honest with him. And I think it's beautiful. But I don't think that I would have been able to be here had I not been vulnerable, open, transparent, humble, recognizing my weaknesses, recognizing my areas of opportunity with God first. Because first, I'm a daughter of my Father. You know what I'm saying? So thank God for that, baby. Thank God for the times that he takes us through where we are operating in vulnerability, because God, doing this with God is teaching us how to do it in relationships. It's teaching us how to do it there. Now, can we talk about like some biblical figures that demonstrate being vulnerable? And I think when we look at this, when we look at it, there's a few of them. I'm just going to give you the scriptures and look them up. Look them up. So David's Psalms. So if you look at Psalms 51, Paul's thorn, that's in 2 Corinthians verse 12, 7 through 10. Jesus' humility, baby. He got so many examples for you. And that's in Hebrews chapter 5, verses 7 through 8. These are good scriptures to meditate on if you're thinking about how can I be vulnerable? Give me some examples. Show me how to express my vulnerability. I'm going to put these in the caption for you. But Psalms 51, 2 Corinthians verse 12, 7 through 10, and Hebrews chapter 5, verses 7 through 8. Look at those. That's giving you an example of David. It's giving you an example of Paul. It's giving you an example of Jesus and their humility in those situations. Pray over that. Pray over that. And when you're praying, and you know what's crazy is like, it took me a little while, gonna be honest, to realize, I guess not even realize, to practice being authentic in my prayer. Practice being authentic when I'm talking to God. Because, have you ever been in that season of your Christianity? You might have been a baby Christian. You might still do it now, where when you go to God, you're like, okay, well, let me get my script ready. Dear Father that art in heaven, you start speaking in King James Version. Is anybody like that? Let's be honest. Please be honest with me. Is anybody like that where you start speaking in King James Version when you're talking to your Father? Our Father, thou helped me through the darkness. No, girl, if you don't come to God and talk to him like you talk to your friend, God, I done had a day, baby. These kids, this man of mine, baby, this job that you done gave me. I know you gave it to me, God, but why they got to be so nappy-headed? Girl, you better talk to your Father and quit playing with that man. Being authentic in prayer and being transparent and being honest with you, because that right there, your God, your Father, your God, your heavenly daddy, he knows exactly who you are. There's no reason to hide it. Being authentic in prayer and being real with it. Like, God, I'm struggling with fornication. God, I'm struggling with watching porn. God, I'm struggling with having ill thoughts to my friend. God, I'm struggling with gossip. I'm struggling with judgment. God, I'm struggling with this. God, I'm struggling with that. Be honest and transparent with your Father. Let him know what you're struggling with. God, I'm struggling in those areas. This is so important, because being vulnerable is being honest and transparent and being authentically you. So when you are being authentically you with your Father, you're sharing with him what you're going through so that he can operate through you and help you navigate through it. He may not take it away, but he's going to show you how to handle it in a godly way. Stay in your word so he can navigate that through. And so when you're praying with God in your authenticness, you're being 100% you. You're sharing your struggles. You're honest about your human emotions. You think, if you think about it, like, I used to wonder, like, I don't want to tell God I'm mad. I don't want to tell God I'm upset. I don't want to tell God that I'm feeling some type of way. I don't want to tell God this. God made you. He made us. So you don't think he recognizes your emotions? God, I'm angry. God, I'm angry. And even God, I'm angry with you. Whew. Let's you hear me? There's been times where you, me, your cousin, and your auntie done been angry with God. Okay? And if you haven't, girl, keep living. Because there's times where it's like, God, why? God, I'm angry. God, I'm upset. God, I'm confused. God, I'm frustrated. Honest. Because right here, this is a relationship between you and your daddy. Baby, honest. Honest, honey. And there's so many benefits of really embracing your vulnerability with God. I already told you one, because you are vulnerable with your father. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is that you're going to notice that you are more open and vulnerable with other people that you love, people that you care about, people that should see you, people that should see you for who you are, because you deserve to be seen. And that's 100% true. And when we look at Psalms chapter 119, verses 71, it says, "It is good to me to be afflicted so that I may learn your decrees." Listen, you're going to have so much deeper relationships when you practice vulnerability. Is it easy? So, no, it's not. If you're someone who struggles with being vulnerable, it is not easy. But it is beautiful when you find that it is easier for you to have deeper relationships because they're more meaningful and they're more impactful. So your relationships are going to be deeper. And I'm noticing, it's so crazy, y'all. And I feel like I'm noticing that in my own relationships, not just the one with me and my boyfriend, but with me and my friendships too. With me and my friendships, like being vulnerable and being honest. I had to tell one of my best friends the other day, like, honestly, I had to check myself before I came to you because I felt like I was doing this to you. And I don't think that that's fair to you. You don't deserve that. And I'm sorry. And she's like, I didn't even notice. I'm like, well, I got to apologize to you because that's how I was feeling. And I love you. And I cannot allow myself to go down this route without telling you that in my heart, I felt a type of way. And I don't think that that's fair to you. So I want to apologize to you because I was wrong. My heart posture was wrong. And honestly, I looked at that situation, and in hindsight, I am so grateful of where God has taken me in my vulnerability to be honest and be transparent and to humble myself, to admit that I'm wrong, to admit that he is correcting me, to admit that I have flaws, and to not hold that in my heart because these are people you love. But so not only are you being vulnerable with God and you're developing a deeper relationship with God, but it pours over to your children, to your friends, to your relationships. And then attached to that is a level of spiritual growth. Attached to that, you are growing spiritually because you're being authentic with your Father. And now that you have deeper relationships, you have a deeper spiritual relationship, you have deeper connections with your family and friends and your significant other. You're developing an authentic community. And when I go back and I think about it, like my past relationships, being that I hid parts of me, I was never fully able to be my 100% Jazzy. I was never able to be 100% me because I was too busy hiding pieces of me because I was scared to release the vulnerability. I was scared. I was scared to talk about the struggles I had with suicide. I was scared to talk about the struggles I had as a single mother. I was scared to talk about my anger issues as a mother because I can never claim to be the perfect mom, but I can claim improvement. I can claim that I have improved as a mother. And part of that improvement was my frustration and my anger and how I took my anger out. And how I handled situations that I should have handled with my children with grace. I handled it with frustration. And I wasn't honest about that. I didn't share those pieces. And now in my growth, I can share those pieces because I'm in the process of improving those pieces. I'm in the process of working on that. And so I just think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. I just wish that for everybody, like to have that space of the authentic community that I think that we all crave. Now, oh, this is good. This is good. I want to ask you, how do you think that godly wisdom guides your vulnerability? Ooh, y'all, oh, this is good. Okay, so let's look at James chapter 1, verse 5. And it says, if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives you generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Bro, I feel like I've had so many so many situations in my life that I was trying to be authentic and vulnerable and transparent, but in the wrong setting. Bro, wrong setting, wrong time. And I kind of already told you about some wrong setting, wrong time before, but like, have you ever had a situation where, even with the wrong person, you shared some intimate details, you were being vulnerable and transparent with the wrong person? Have you ever had that? Like, I've definitely had that. So luckily we have our father who is amazing, and that Proverbs challenge really ate down, because the Proverbs challenge, I think, really helped solidify a lot of this. But if you don't recall, the Proverbs challenge was for the month of October. My friends on TikTok and I read one chapter of Proverbs every single day. And Proverbs, that book, is all about godly wisdom. So if you have not dove into Proverbs, read it. It's good, and it's all about godly wisdom. And a man named Solomon wrote the majority of that book, but it's so good. So godly wisdom helps you define. I'm going to no refine. Yeah, it helps you refine discernment. Your tool of discernment. And us being believers, we have a tool of discernment. Some of us have to refine it. Most of us have to refine it. Most of us have to work on our discernment tool. But in discernment, it helps you to navigate right and wrong, the person, the time, all that. Prayerful consideration. So praying, before you even release that vulnerability, consider God in that. And then seeking counsel. So if you're not sure, seeking counsel through therapy or other people of God, just seeking godly counsel. These right here, I wish I would have had it when I was just being vulnerable with the wrong people. I mean, and there's been times where I've overshared with the wrong people, in the wrong crowds at the wrong time. I've overshared. And so discernment has allowed me to really navigate that, talking to God about it, even talking to God about times that I did. I'm like, God, I don't think I should have shared that. Being vulnerable with him, but vulnerability can enhance our relationships. And I think that we've already kind of covered that. But if you look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32, it says, be kind and compassionate with one another, forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. It takes a level of vulnerability to forgive somebody. It does. To authentically forgive someone, it takes not only a level of empathy for that person and for yourself, but it does take a level of vulnerability and active listening, of course, and conflict resolution, of course. But you have to be really vulnerable to say, listen, I forgive you, because I need to be kind and compassionate to you just as God is kind and compassionate to me. And I know I've done some things that God, didn't have to forgive, but he forgave. And because my Father is so amazing, I have to give you that same accord. I forgive you. I forgive you. It takes a level of vulnerability to do that. Don't you think? when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. And there is a fear attached to it, I guess, of being vulnerable. For me, let me be honest with you, because for me, there's a fear attached to it. Because let's say you, God is telling you, listen, Shanice, Shamika, Michelle, Melissa, Jazzy, I need you to be vulnerable in the situation. I need you to work on this because I need to use that in you. It may be kind of scary. So how do you overcome fear and embrace the vulnerability piece? And even in business, like you're starting a business, you're nervous to put it out there. You are starting a podcast like myself, or you are starting a YouTube, and you know that to connect with your audience and to really get your message across, it's going to require you to be vulnerable. It may be scary. But if you look at 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Let me repeat that to you because that's so far. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Let's recognize the fear. What are you scared of? Recognize it. Why are you scared of it? God called you to do it. So obviously, because God called you to do this, his love is going to overshadow that. So trusting the love that God gives to you and stepping out on faith. God told me to be vulnerable in this situation. God told me to share this with you. God told me to do this for you. And it's scary for me, but God called me in faith to do this. And I have no choice but to do it. But I know God loves me enough that he wouldn't put me in a situation that would hurt me. He wouldn't do it. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. That is so beautiful. Man, I'm just thinking about, the relationships that I've had where I was scared to be vulnerable. I was scared to be honest, and I was scared to be transparent. And even if I'm looking aside from like romantic relationships with my children, there's a level of vulnerability attached with saying, I'm sorry, I hurt you. I'm sorry, I disappointed you. There's a level of vulnerability with that. And I think innately, as I grew into being the parent that I think my daughters need, as I'm working on being the parent that they need, there's a level of vulnerability that I'm trying to operate in with that, because, it wasn't always easy to tell my kids I'm sorry. That was not always easy. And I guess it was me either being afraid that I was going to lose the role to them, I guess, or the mistake that I made. They were going to look at me differently as a mother. But when we think about it, like if you go back to 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Your vulnerability is welcomed in areas where you're loved. Your vulnerability is welcomed, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful. The authentic you is welcomed, even if you're scared, in areas where love is. And if you're in a situation, who's ever listening to this, where you are scared to be your authentic self, you're scared of that, reevaluate it. Give that to God, because where real love is, it drives out that fear. And that may be some healing that needs to be done for you. That may be God calling you out of your relationship. Whatever that looks like for you, bring that to God. Be transparent and honest with him. God, I'm in this situation. I'm in this relationship. And in my relationship, I'm scared to be myself. God, what are you telling me? What are you saying to me? I'm scared to be vulnerable in my relationship. God, what are you saying? Because you told me in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, that there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. But yet here I am, and I'm scared. God, what are you telling me? Or Are you a mother or a father who is in a situation where they are nervous to be vulnerable with their children? I am operating in perfect love for my children. There's no fear here. That fear is not from you, God. Please help me navigate this situation. Please help me be the parent that they need. And that's the prayer for me, for my children, is God, allow me, correct me, refine me to be the parent that my child needs. My girls, 2 girls. One she's turning 14 on Sunday. And then I have my 10-year-old. And so I have a 14 and a 10-year-old. And baby, as they grow, their needs for a parent grows. And it's scary. Yes, it is. God, redefine me every day if you need to be the parent that my babies need. Redefine me. And practicing vulnerability is so important because how can you or we or I incorporate being vulnerable into our lives on a day-to-day basis? Let's look at Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, for I will give you rest. You got to bring that to God, baby. Baby, you got to bring that to God. That's how you practice vulnerability. Baby, talk to your father. So one of my favorite things to do is to journal. I have way too many journals. But let me tell you, journaling is so fun. You just got to if you're a girly girl, you got to get you some cute pens, honey. Get you some cute pens and grab you a journal. Let me tell you the place that has some of the best journals for the low. Hobby Lobby. And I know right now, if you're on TikTok, you've probably seen the video where the owners of Hobby Lobby, the CEO or the company Hobby Lobby, donated money, like bands to Donald Trump. And so a lot of people are boycotting Hobby Lobby. I'm not there because Hobby Lobby be having some deals. So if you're boycotting it, hey, be great. I'm not boycotting nothing, baby. I need all the sales I can get. And they got some cute journals in there. So I found the cutest journal from Hobby Lobby for like $4. And I told you about Hobby Lobby before because I found a couple of devotional books out of there for $3. So y'all can boycott it. I'm going to be in there getting my journals and my Bible books. You know, hey. But yeah, Hobby Lobby is a really good place to get some journals. If you're looking for a nice, cute, girly journal, Hobby Lobby got you. If you are boycotting Hobby Lobby, TJ Maxx has some cute ones. Marshall's has some cute ones. I haven't seen any real cute ones in Five Below, but those are my recommendations. But I love to journal. Journaling is my thing. And so journaling, because you like word vomit on paper when you're journaling. For some reason, that's what I do. I go on a complete tangent. Of course, prayer, but authentic sharing with people. So journaling, getting it all out there, talking to your father through prayer, and authentically sharing your stuff, authentically sharing what you're going through. Because what I look at it like is, honestly, you're not the first person who's ever going to go through what you're going through, and you will not be the last. And you never know who you are touching. You never know who you're touching. You never know who your story is going to bless, inspire, give confirmation. You never know. You never know. So authentically sharing that. So in conclusions, think about vulnerability and godly wisdom are essential for spiritual growth and meaningful relationships. I'm learning it, and I love it. I love it because your relationship, as you cultivate your relationship with God, it's going to offer an overflow. So people around you are going to be blessed because you're a blessing. Period. People around you are going to be blessed. So practice vulnerability. If you struggle with it, practice being vulnerable. If you about this, I think I told y'all about the book. I know I told you about the book that I need to actually read. I still have not read this book. I need to read it. It's called The Gift of Imperfection by Brene Brown. The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. If you struggle with vulnerability, if you struggle with second guessing yourself, I'm reading this book. I'm starting it tomorrow. That's in my mind. In my mind, I'm starting it tomorrow. Um, but it's the gifts of imperfection, because this is so important for me to read it. I'm staring at it right now. I'm gonna check it out tomorrow. But if you need some of that, definitely dive into some books to help you navigate through that. So thank you guys so much for tuning into today's podcast. And as you know, I love speaking with you, and I cannot wait to speak with you on next Tuesday at 6 p.m. is the plan. If not, by midnight, I will post that video. But thank you guys so much for joining in. You know we can't leave unless we pray it out. So let's go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you guys so much for the people listening to this podcast, God. Thank you so much for them. And God, as we walk in our journeys to become more vulnerable at using your godly wisdom, not our own, but yours, God, I just want to tell you thank you. Thank you so much, God, for allowing us to be more vulnerable with people in our lives that we love, people that we care about, to share our testimonies so that people get closer to you, to share our testimonies in a way that glorifies you, God, because we are so grateful that we are here. And each and every one of us has a testimony. Each and every one of us has a story that you showed up in our lives that brought us here, where we're learning more about you and where we're loving and growing as Christians and as lovers of God. God, thank you so much. And God, I pray for anyone who is struggling with vulnerability, that they continue to seek you about that, God, either through prayer, through journaling, through seeking healthy counsel, through being around people who it's easy for them to share. It's easy for them to be vulnerable, God, because being vulnerable with you leads to relationships that are meaningful and impactful. And God, we thank you for that. Thank you for the relationships that we have, that we can be authentically ourselves. We can be vulnerable. We can be transparent, because we all deserve to be seen. God, thank you. And with that being said, I pray this all in your name. Amen. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Love you. Mama, kisses, kisses, kisses. Bye, y'all.